Rich does a phenomenal job covering the Mets, and he's in Philadelphia today as the Mets try to take 2 out of 3 from the Phils. Rich, it's Zach Gelb, Chase Sr., and John Henry. How are you?
How you guys doing this morning?
Doing well. Doing good.
Well, we're doing great, and this Mets team, they surprised some people out of the gates, and I know it's early, and as a Met fan, I'm not going to get exuberant about this because I've seen this team start off hot before. 5-3 to start the year. The guys in the locker room must be feeling good about this.
They really are. I think, aside from last night, the starting pitching has been very good. I think that's been, at the forefront of it. Team has issues still. There's no question about it. But I do think that, when you have good starting pitching, you give yourself a chance to win every night, and that's really what they've done. Even in some of the games they've lost, they've had enough starting pitching to win. So that is a very encouraging sign for the Mets and their fans.
And the two guys that have been very impressive in this rotation have been Jonathan Neese, who's now in that ace role with Johan not being there for the season, and R.A. Dickey out in Toronto. And then Matt Harvey, he's been stellar. And you've been hearing comparisons, and I know it's early, but I saw some people say that he has Doc-like potential.
Well, he's a different pitcher than Doc and different person than Doc. But I do understand when people are saying, but you also have to remember he's still young. He's been very impressive, there's no doubt. And as impressive with his demeanor and mound presence as his talent. And I think that, listen, I've gone on spring training the last 2 years and seen what, the Mets have. And, when you look at Zach Wheeler and you look at Matt Harvey, Zach Wheeler has better stuff, but, Matt Harvey's got the whole package. He's got the makeup, he's got the maturity, he's got the poise to go with the talent. And I think that he's been very impressive, there's no doubt. And he's opened the eyes of a lot of people around baseball, not just in the Met organization. And it was really funny. I heard in the press box last night, you walking around, and there were 2 Philly officials online with me, to have dinner, and they were in front of me. And they were talking about the upcoming game last night, and they were saying, yeah, hopefully we can win tonight. He goes, thank God we don't have to deal with that guy Harvey again. And for someone to say that the first time they seen him, or the second time they've seen him, speaks volumes on what people think of Matt Harvey.
Rich, Chase Sr. here. Thanks so much for joining us. And as a Phillies fan, to see Matt Harvey go out there 2 nights ago, and the performance that he came up with on the mound was very impressive. He was a highly touted prospect coming into the Mets organization. Is this a guy that could possibly be a 15, 20-game winner in future years?
I don't think there's any question he has the capability of it. Obviously, it was one of the last decisions Omar Minaya made as general manager of the Mets was to draft Matt Harvey. And it's been a great party here for the Mets. But, listen, I think with young pitchers, you always have to temper your enthusiasm a little bit, and I say Justin Verlander is my main case for that. Verlander burst onto the scene, had a great year, and then that second year after that, for an initial great year, he had a poor season, but since then it's been great. Like, how do you explain that poor season? I don't know how you explain it. I guess you'd have to break down film and look at every individual game and see what his approach was. But we're talking about the guy that's recognized as probably the best pitcher in the sport right now. And he had a year where he had everyone scratching their head. Mm-hmm. So I think you have to temper your enthusiasm with young pitching. But certainly Harvey has the potential to be, at the bare minimum, a number 2 in a rotation.
Rich Coutinho joins us here on the hotline, Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP. Zach Gelb, John Henry, and Chase Sr. here with you. And you saw Cliff Lee pitch this week, and you also saw Roy Halladay. But Roy Halladay has been the big question here in Philadelphia. We all know his past, and it's been historic about some of the stuff that he's done. But it kind of looks like he doesn't have the confidence that he once had through these first 2 games of the season. And his first 2 starts have been bad.
And the comments after the game on Monday night, they were bizarre, surreal.
They were.
Some kind of another planet or something. Mm-hmm. I've never heard people. That's as good as the mango tree with Pedro. Mm-hmm. It's right up there. But listen, obviously we don't get a chance to see the Phillies at spring training because they're on the other side of the state, Clearwater. But I wanted to really take a good hard long look at Halladay Monday night. I know he's always had that kind of choppy delivery. But to me, he looks like he's pushing the ball, mm-hmm. not throwing the ball, almost short-arming it. And that indicates to me someone who is feeling something, cannot be healthy. I don't care what anyone says. Roy Halladay is a great pitcher, and he isn't just a thrower. He's a great pitcher. Now, you have to admit there's a lot of wear and tear on that arm. He was pitching complete games when nobody in the sport was doing it. And it may have taken his toll, but to me, something didn't look right with his delivery. And unless it's a mechanical, to me, it looked like somebody compensating for pain somewhere else in their body, and it's just a theory. And I think the Phillies need to give him a full-blown checkup if they haven't already to see if there's anything in there, in the elbow or the shoulder or even in the back, that isn't working well for him, and that's causing it. Because he's too good a pitcher to come up with these performances. You know, he has pedigree, so I think he's pitching hurt, to be totally honest with you.
Yeah, he certainly lacked that lower torque in his lower half that we've seen in years past, and the velocity was there, the movement was there, but the location was not there. But when we take a step back and look at this NL East division as a whole, the Nationals are off to a great start. They made some great offseason acquisitions. The Braves are doing very well, and the Upton brothers are tearing it up right now. How do you think this division's going to play out? Because there's some good competition in this division.
I think the Braves win the division coming out of jump because I thought, although the Nationals made some acquisitions, I still think the Braves have the most complete team in terms of having offense, starting pitching, and the closer. And I didn't think they were much better than the Nationals, but slightly better. And obviously injuries during the season could play things out. I look at the Nationals second, and I actually think the Mets will finish third in this division.
Oh, wow. The Phillies, oh, wow. A lot of people picking the Mets.
The Phillies, to me, remind me a lot of the Yankees right now. The Yankees and the Phillies are going to have similar seasons. There's teams like kind of playing around with the top of their payroll and trying to pare it down just a little bit. They're not, massive sellers. But the little things the Phillies did last year, like, getting some payroll at the deadline, Hunter Pence, things like that make you think that the Phillies may have tapped out on their dollars, and now they're looking for creative ways not to cut payroll in half or anything that silly, but they're looking for ways to cut $10, $20 million out of their payroll so they'll have the flexibility to add on when they need it, and they have some decisions to make, long term with this team roster wise, and I think it's very similar with the Yankees. Now the Yankees are doing it for different reasons. The Yankees want to get under the luxury tax number. I think the Phillies are nowhere near the luxury tax number, but I think there's similar situations. They're both in divisions in which there are some established teams, a couple of teams, and a couple of teams coming up from the rear. And it's going to be fascinating to me to see how the Phillies and the Yankees deal with this. And I think, they're both going to be around the same, win total, somewhere between 80 and 85. And I think that it's going to be very challenging for both of them to keep their fans interested because their fans are used to excellence in the last 5 years. The other big elephant in the room for the Phillies is Charlie Manuel. I mean, the manager in waiting is there every night.
Ryan Sandberg,
definitely, he's third base coach. Rich, what do you think of Cole Hamels? I think he's going to rebound. He had 2 bad starts, similar to Holiday. They've each been on the same kind of path. Obviously, I'm more worried about Holiday because of, he's been hurt. He had a bad season last year. But, I mean, obviously, what do you think of him? You think he's gonna definitely rebound, right?
I think he'll rebound. The problem I have with Cole Hamels, and that's why I would have thought long and hard signing him to what you signed him for, is the neck-up part of the game. With Hamels. Listen, he has a killer arm, great stuff, but you wish you could take Halliday's mind and merge it with Hamels' stuff.
Right.
Sure. He'd have an incredible pitcher. Cole Hamels disappears in innings too much for me. There are times when to me, he looks like on the mound that he's in a bit of a fog, and then there are those days where he gives you 8 innings, 1 run, and you say, boy, he's an ace. It's confounding with young baseball players. And he's not a young player anymore. He's been around for quite a number of years. But I just put him a tick below some of the great pitchers in the National League.
He's kind of got that California mindset.
Kershaw, for example.
Yeah.
So Rich Coutinho joins us on the hotline from WFAN in New York, and he does a great job covering the New York Mets. And Rich, I look at this rotation, and I said it before the season that Cliff Lee's going to be your best pitcher. He was stellar last night. He was brilliant. But did you have any problem with Manuel taking him out of the game and not letting him go, the complete game only being 1 out away?
Well, unless there's a pitch meter in the dugout that kind of went off and an alarm went off, if you thought you didn't want him to throw so many pitches, then you should have had him start the inning. If you really felt that way about it, because you didn't throw an insane amount of pitches inside the inning. It was a little confounding to me. And listen, that's where you kind of, you have to trust your pitcher, but you have to think from Charlie Manuel's perspective too. He has this pitcher that pitched the previous night that had always finished games and always been pushed to finish games. And he's got his one meal ticket now, Cliff Lee, and he probably had a pitch count in his mind, and when it went off, he took him out of the game. I think it speaks to today's baseball. And look, I'm 52 years old, so I grew up with pitchers finishing games. And I'm talking about 11-inning games, pitchers finishing games. And I think part of the problem, and there weren't as many injuries. Now, medical technology is different today. Maybe we could spot injuries that we didn't spot before. But I think part of the problem is the pitching arm is a muscle and it has to be exercised. And you have the Halladay thing, but then you look at Johan Santana and how much the Mets babied him in the first 2 years of his tenure with the Mets, where, on days where he was pitching shutout, they take him out after 7 innings. And to me, once you sign a pitcher to a contract like Santana's, that's the time you work him. Because at the back end of the contract, he's not going to be as good as he is in the front end of the contract. And I just think baseball has it backwards. And time again, with the Yankees have done a job at Chamberlain, I like Nolan Ryan's approach. Let's make these guys start completing games in the minor leagues, and when they get to the major leagues, they at least know what it's like. And I think that baseball's become very sabermetric, and there's an appropriate level for that. It's like a tool that could be used, but everything can't be done with sabermetrics. You got to trust your eyes, and I think baseball general managers, sabermetrics has become so part of the culture in baseball that a general manager deviates from it. He thinks if he doesn't win, it could cost him his job. So he's going to hang on to that. And I think that it speaks volumes to where baseball's headed, and hopefully it'll go the other way, because I just think for years and years, baseball trusted its eyes. And your stat sheet can only tell you one thing. The great Vince Scully once said, stats are like a drunken man in a lamppost. So much more for illumination, much more for support than illumination. And there's a lot of truth to that.
Rich, real quick here right before we let you go, as Rich does a great job covering the Mets for WFAN in New York. This offense, Buck has been the biggest surprise to me offensively, and Ike Davis continues to struggle. Just a thought about those two players?
The first player was who?
Buck.
Oh, Buck. Listen, you ride Buck as long as you can. The ironic thing is the Mets have a catcher in waiting down in Las Vegas and Travis d'Arnaud. But listen, Buck came here with the reputation of, not a great average guy, but can hit the long ball, something the Mets didn't get from the catcher position in the last 2 or 3 seasons. I think that will eventually level off. Baseball levels off. The Ike thing, look, he was raking it in spring training. Not that spring training stats should ever be used as a measure, but just the way he was swinging the bat. And I think what Ike, and I said this last year when he was going through the stuff in the first half of the season, with him it's always about pitch selection and counts, okay? And it's that way with every hitter, but with him, warp it up like 50 times. And I just think he's in a state right now where he's lunging at bad pitches and taking the pitches he can hit. And I think he needs to kind of get refocused a little bit. And I'd like to see him not so much swing at the first pitch, because he's so anxious to get ahead that he feels like he has to, hit that first pitch. Work the count a little bit. And I like to see him study some more film of pitchers. I think that, they've got a book on Ike now, and they're going to tag him in a certain way. And he has to respond and adapt to it. I think he will, because he did last year. But this is a different kind of slump than last year, because I think this is really mechanical. And last year I just thought he had missed too much time. And when he got to the season, he's trying to catch up warp speed and didn't. So I think it's a different kind of slump, but I still think he's going to mark him down for 25-90 at the bare minimum this season.
Rich, thanks so much. We appreciate the time.
You too. Stay well, guys. Keep the great work.
Thanks, Rich.
Rich Coutinho right there of WFAN up.